Maybe I'll try the cloud next time. Okay, today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Thanks for joining me. I'm Ben Greiner. With me is Chad Calise, Michelle Charles. Looks like we have a few guests. And what's my view? Let's go gallery view for right now. And is there a way to highlight the presenter? Spotlight for everyone? Is that what we want? Spotlight for everyone. I think that's, as we talk, we'll get highlighted. Okay, so today the topic is optimizing your storage. Chad, Michelle, do you know what I mean by optimize your storage?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, same here. I feel like I'm a very clean person in the real world, but in the digital world, it's a lot more challenging for me because I just don't see it. I don't see it in the same way, right? I don't like actually live in it in the same way. And I've noticed
it's the opposite for me.
It's the opposite.
It is.
Your real world is
Isn't
more
that terrible?
Or less organized.
Yeah, the virtual world is easier for me to, naming conventions and sorting things and visualizing how I want it to look and I have more control over it than I do the physical world, right? I live in a house with a lot of people, 4 kids here, my wife and I, a couple dogs. If you put something somewhere and you wait and you go back, it's not going to be where you put it. So yeah,
well, that's
it's
interesting.
Same problem, different context.
Yeah. Michelle, what do you think? What's your take on how clean do you keep your computer?
Probably not great, but I send out the alerts each week when people's hard drive when it's becoming full. So I do pay attention, but for me, it's neat freak physically what I can see. But I walk by my daughter's computer and it says she has like 1,700 emails and I just have a panic attack and I have to walk away.
That's real.
Yeah, when I would do more support desk work, I would see that all the time. And I also would have a little bit of a panic attack when I would see people's email, and I have, I think, more organization in my email, but it's still
my
a struggle.
Email's fine.
It can be a struggle. What I found interesting when I do talk to people about their virtual storage is a lot of times they really don't know where they put things, and they like have no clue in some cases. And I kind of equate it to, in the real world, if someone just started throwing things on the floor as they were walking around the house and not paying attention to where they were
one
putting
chair
things. Yeah, or even like notes or books or papers, and so I would say, well, where do you think you put it? Like, I don't know, I just hit save. It's like, well, so you just threw it on the ground.
That's true.
Didn't pay attention.
That's true.
So
I remember actually, you just inspired me to remember back in my early days of working with Macs, 20 whatever bazillion years ago. I was originally Linux, coming from the Linux side, and was kind of a Windows fanboy. And I specifically remembering how easy it was to lose track of things in Windows, just because it was like, click through, versus, the Mac platform back then always prompted you specifically to choose, right? So there was a little more work up front by default. All the OSs are a little bit, the operating systems are a little bit different, and the way that they, either set us up for, success to understand where things are going or not. And so it's tricky. It's tricky to manage it, especially when we're busy.
Yeah. And I'm looking again to see why, like when you were talking, Chad, why didn't it spotlight you? That's what I need to figure out.
I have that turned off because I use this for like PTA stuff, and I don't always like to dominate the view. So it's probably a setting on my end.
Spotlight. I'm just going to say again, spotlight for everyone. Okay, looks like it might be working, or maybe not, because now you're spotlighted. So we'll continue to figure that out, and I'll share my screen here in a minute. But this challenge of just basically accumulating stuff. Especially as hard drives have gotten bigger and more affordable. It's kind of like, I've heard, and I've experienced this a bit, although my house is not that big, but if you have a big house, you tend to fill it, right? If you have a small house, you kind of you figure out how to live within your means, within your space. And I do see, as people get larger hard drives, they just simply keep more stuff on their computer. And if you have a small hard drive, you're kind of forced to be more lean. I will say I used to have a 120 gig hard drive, and today I don't. If everyone who's here could just kind of go under the Apple menu to about this Mac and click on storage. In fact, I should share my screen so we can see exactly what we're looking at. Share screen. We go share screen. Okay. Do you see my screen, my overview page? Yes. And by the way, I did upgrade to macOS Big Sur this weekend. That's one of the reasons why I'm also floundering a bit, because this is the first time I've done this on Big Sur. It's also the first time I've done this in Zoom. We moved to Zoom because Ntiva uses Zoom, and we're trying to move toward a platform where we can have signups, and you can sign up and get the recording sent to you automatically after the show, so to speak. So quick aside, Big Sur, I still don't recommend it for clients. It's still quite a big jump. There's still lots of things we're waiting on. I had some iCloud issues I had to work through. I also discovered my local printer doesn't work with Big Sur. So I got to find a sort of a workaround for that. Yeah. Sure. So those are the types of things, those are the reasons, those little annoyances that can turn into really irritating things when you're trying to get work done, are the reason why we're not encouraging our clients to go to Big Sur today. So just keep that in mind. If you do have a spare machine, a test machine, great opportunity to put Big Sur on it and see what works and what doesn't work in your home or in your environment. But I wanted everyone to go to storage and just kind of see what your hard drive looks like. So I have a 250 gig hard drive. I will say I tried for years to keep, I think 120 was like the smallest, or is the smallest today. Didn't used to be, but is today. And there was a time where even with being very streamlined with apps, operating system, and photos, like I couldn't fit it in 120, just couldn't do it anymore. And I do often hit the top of 250 and have to pare down. So I sometimes think, oh, should I go to that next level, which is essentially 500, so doubling again the 500. And you can see it's kind of changing here because it's doing some on the fly calculations and it's making some adjustments. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. But I have to admit, the only reason mine is not full is because when I went to Big Sur, I wiped my computer and I started it over. That's also something I don't recommend for clients because that's a whole nother project, it's a whole nother time. It takes a lot of time. It's also a nice clean way to just say, hey, I want to get rid of everything I don't need and rebuild it. Now, I did make a time machine backup before I did that. I have a cloud backup in Ntiva, but it takes a while to retrieve from the cloud, and that's really for emergencies. Like if something bad happens to my computer. In fact, today, right before the show here, I restarted, which I always do before doing a presentation, and it got stuck on the Apple menu or the Apple icon. So it appeared to shut down and it came back up, and I expected to see that first unlock screen for File Vault, but it just sat there. And so I went and got some water, I came back, it was still there. It was not coming out of it. So I had to hold down the button for 5 seconds, shut it down. I don't remember the last time that happened. Probably has something to do with Big Sur and some of the bugs still around in Big Sur. So I did force quit. I waited like 10 seconds for everything to kind of quiet down. Then I hit the power button again, it started up. I got the screen, I unlocked it, I went in, here I am. But another reason why be wary of Big Sur, use it for testing. And so Chad, what kind of hard drive do you have? What size?
It's 500 gigs.
500, okay, you got 500. Michelle, what's your computer?
It's also 500.
500, okay. And where are you guys sitting? Are you, how much do you have available? It says I have 170. What do you have, Chad? No judgment. Just
I've got about 63 gigs.
63. Okay. And
Yeah,
Michelle,
mostly because
what do you have?
a lot of
I'm
VMs.
using 439 out of 500.
Okay.
Yeah,
430.
similar.
So that's quite a bit of space. And you can see actually in mine, I've got a ton of photos. And that's not even work related. That's just my photos.
But that's probably pretty consistent for a lot of everyday folks, right? We
Yeah.
all take a lot of photos, and especially if you've got families, and we used to travel.
Yeah.
Remember that? So that's probably a pretty real world example.
It probably is. And you can see if I had 120 gig hard drive, my photos are 137 gigs. So that's not going to
because that
fit.
includes videos too. Right?
It includes videos.
Some of those
I mean,
maybe motion. Mm-hmm.
The iPhone has made it so easy to capture moments, whether it's a still photo, a live photo, or a video, maybe a slow motion video, and all that stuff adds up. So certainly I could go through and clean out my photos library. In fact, I considered doing that once, but then because I also sync with iCloud, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm like, I will just buy more iCloud storage because it's going to take me days, weeks, months to go through these photos. And then I have to be in the right frame of mind to just hit delete on photos that if I'm not in the right frame of mind, I'm like, maybe I'll keep it. I mean, why should I keep all those photos? In my lifetime, I probably will not go look at all those photos. However, the new feature in iOS 14 and I think Big Sur also introduced this. Does anyone use this where you see photos, memories come up, your photo memories come up on your desktop? They introduced it, I think, in iOS 14. I turn that on. It's really nice. Like every day, kind of turn on your iPad or iPhone, and now you can also see it in Big Sur. And you'll see a little memory, a little photo memory, like on this day, 5, 10, not 10 years ago, because that was probably too far for the iPhone, but 3, 4 years ago or last year. And that is nice to see those old family photos come up. And so that's the nice thing about having the photos. But anyway, I have a photo problem, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah. But it's really, we talked about it last time. Maybe the last couple of times we talked about the shortcuts, right? And iOS. And I've found that I'm using
automation shortcuts.
Yeah, I'm using that more and more. Just to talk for a second about managing photos, because it doesn't get easier with practice. It doesn't seem to.
No.
Right. But I have a shortcut that I use now that has helped me manage it on my iOS devices, which has saved me a ton of storage. So there's a shortcut that I've created that if I don't favorite or if I don't heart an image, it's queued for deletion.
Oh,
right?
Wow. That's hardcore.
So it kind of, it is pretty hardcore, but it's the quickest workflow I could come up with.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm doing this. And so when I take photos, let's say like I take 3 photos of my dog, for example, I favorite the one that I like the best, and I don't favorite the other 2. It's really quick. And then, periodically, once a month or so, I run that shortcut and it deletes anything that's not favorited.
Yeah.
And it can save you a ton of space, and it's certainly not a lot of, because the overhead that we can put into managing photos can get ridiculous.
I wonder if can you share that shortcut, Chad? Could we post it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that. Give it a try. So yeah, I've got,
big time
if I didn't have these photos, I really wouldn't have a problem. I've got about 8 gigs of apps. I've got 3 gigs of messages. We'll talk about that. I've got 1.5 gigs of documents, and I've got a system which takes up 15 gigs. So in fact, one of the challenges, or one of the bugs with Big Sur right now is, and I think they worked this out, or maybe with 11.2, which is what I'm running now, 11.2. But there was a bug with 11.1 where it would not calculate the hard drive space properly, and it needs to download Big Sur, which is, I think, bigger than 15 gigs, and then it needs to expand, and then it needs to install. So you needed to have like 30 or 40 gigs free in order to just install Big Sur, and it was miscalculating that. And in some cases, people would install Big Sur, but they would not have enough hard drive space, and it would basically destroy their hard drive. I mean, the boot disk, it would no longer boot because it tried to write over a space that it couldn't. So that's a pretty serious bug. Not something that you want to happen to your computer unless you have a backup. So that's another reason why you should have some free hard drive space. In fact, the general rule that we've always kind of lived with for a long time, maybe we could reevaluate it, but the general rule is you want to have at least 10% of your hard drive free. In fact, back in the day, I think we would say 20% because the hard drives were smaller. And if you were down to 20%, you were in trouble. Today, hard drives are larger, more efficient, but less than 10%, you're running, you need to prepare. And if you get to 99, I've seen clients with 98, 99% hard drives full. That is danger zone, because that means if you're trying to save a file and it doesn't know where to write or can't find a place, it could eventually lock up your hard drive. And I've seen the warnings
start getting slow. Then you start getting up in there.
That's right.
And swap goes out the window and everything else just comes to a slow halt, doesn't it?
That's right. Thanks for reminding me, Chad. It's speed as well. It's not just that you're in danger of locking up your hard drive because you've literally filled it up and you can't do anything else. But your speed will slowly diminish as you get near a full hard drive, because everything uses the hard drive after it uses all the RAM, uses the hard drive as extra storage space or cache space, and eventually things just slow down. Even with the SSDs, my understanding is it will eventually slow down. So it's a good idea to have some storage space. So what happens when you need to free up space? What do you do? And there are some tools that we've used in the past that help with this, and I think they're still around. I forget the name of the one that we've used. I'll find it. I'll put it in the notes. But Apple started building their own management tool into the OS. And I don't remember when they introduced this, but everyone can go here and go to manage. Mm-hmm. And
I used a tool called Tree Size from back in the day. Do you guys remember Tree Size? It's pretty great.
Tree Size.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It works on, I think it's multi-platform, but it will show you specifically the size of specific folders and assets if you want it to. But it's incredibly handy when you're up against that, that quota of you're in that. I think 10% is risky. I try to have, a little bit more. I'm not in a great spot right now because a lot of VMs, but do
you see
that's a great tool.
Screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you see my, okay. So so I clicked on manage and it brought up this view here, and you can see my desktop is kind of a mess. I didn't clean it up before I did my presentation. And Apple has what's called stacks now, which makes it look cleaner than it really is. But it is still an issue that if you have too many things on your desktop, especially I've seen clients who literally have the smallest icons possible, and they are filled like 100 by 100, it looks like, on the desktop. Every time you do something, even like moving a screen like this, it has to redraw that entire screen. And it looks and kind of refreshes those icons. That used to be a huge problem. As computers have gotten faster, as hard drives have gotten faster, it's less and less noticeable. But it used to be, we would literally speed up someone's computer by removing all the icons from their desktop and just putting them in a folder.
That's true. I still
kind of follow that habit, although you won't notice the difference that much. But I do have this clean folder, 2021. I'll dump things in there. And typically I do that before presentation. Didn't do it this time. But this is a great tool.
I just saw David, his comment. David, you're in good shape, man. I'm pretty envious. He's got a 500 gig drive and he's only using 60 gigs. The sky's the limit, man.
Oh yeah. Nice.
That's rad.
Well, and also when hard drives got big, like our first 1 gig hard drive, I remember we had to split them up into separate partitions because it was like the computer couldn't handle it or something. I can't remember all the details, but we don't do that anymore. One hard drive, you don't need partitions. There might be special use cases for video workflow, but other than that, you really don't need it. So let's take a look, and I encourage everyone, to follow along and see what yours looks like, and Chad and Michelle and David, follow along. So first of all, store in iCloud. You need an iCloud account. They give you 5 gigs. It's not typically going to be enough. You're going to want to upgrade and pay for more storage. I did that for myself and my family through family sharing. In fact, Apple now allows a family to share data, storage data. They didn't used to do that. You used to have to upgrade each individual person in your family. Now with family sharing, you can buy, I think I have 2 terabytes and the whole family can take advantage of it. I will say this is more of a personal workflow. It's not a business workflow. I would not rely on iCloud, for business. It's not really there yet. It can be buggy, it can be problematic. It can be great when it works. In fact, if you didn't hear the story, I gave a presentation in Australia a few years ago, and I was using iCloud storage for my keynote presentation, and it was working
on
really
an iPad,
well.
Right?
Yeah. I would work on the iPad. I would work on my computer, but it was the same keynote presentation in iCloud, and it worked all the way up until it didn't work, which was right before my presentation. I nearly had a panic attack, and fortunately was able to, with the help of some friends, recover enough to give the presentation. But what I didn't anticipate was that this stuff works great when you have a really good internet connection. But if you go to Australia, where they have not as good an internet connection, at least not where I was, any hiccup or miscommunication, it doesn't, like, it basically thought it was writing a copy to the cloud, but lost the connection and then broke my entire file. And Time Machine couldn't get it back. Nothing could get it back. So just, I don't want to scare you away from iCloud. I use iCloud, but it's not really a business solution yet. So let's take a look at store in iCloud and see what that looks like. So choose what you would like to store in iCloud: desktops and documents and photos. So that's what I'm storing in iCloud. Those are my only options. If this is your business machine, do not turn on desktops and documents. Just don't do it. That could introduce issues that you don't want to deal with. If it's already on, you can leave it on. Photos, you might experiment with photos. That's how I first started doing this. And Apple introduced photos in the cloud first, then they later introduced desktop and documents. And I don't know, Chad, am I being too cautious and telling people not to use that yet at work?
No, I think you're very wise to suggest that, but it's probably helpful if we provided a little more detail as to why we suggest not using that, and particularly in the context of compliance, right? Everybody's favorite topic. It's tricky. If let's say, for example, I'm working on my Mac and I'm working with some sensitive information. Maybe it's owned by my organization. Maybe it's owned by a client organization, and I'm not working off of a server. It's maybe not a shared resource. Someone emails me a document, and there's some sensitive information in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be PII. It could be completely, just intellectual property. And I check this box. Everything that is on my desktop and my documents, including that information that I may or may not own, is going to get copied up into iCloud. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't like that, right? And Apple's one of them.
Exactly. And Apple's done a better job of enforcing security measures, especially two-factor authentication. I think you have to have that on now in order to do some of this stuff. I know I have it on. I just don't remember if it's absolutely enforced or not, but you do need and want to have two-factor on if you're using iCloud. I think with managed Apple IDs, anywhere. Thank you for that. With managed Apple IDs, which are still in its infancy, we're still experimenting with how to really take full advantage of managed Apple IDs. But eventually, I think with a managed Apple ID that's owned by the business and a separate iCloud storage, we will get to a business solution with desktops and documents, which means your desktops and documents will be synchronized between your Apple computer, your iPad, and your iPhone. And today, on a personal level, that sort of works, but there can be problems. So let's avoid that for right now. But photos, I would turn that on. Optimize storage. This is just a checkbox. So save space by automatically removing Apple TV movies and TV shows that you've already watched. So I did that. I don't even have TVs and movies on here, or at least I shouldn't. If I do, that was a mistake on my part. That's Apple made it so easy I didn't even notice it, which could be possible. So be aware of that. But I would check that. Empty trash automatically. I would definitely turn that on. Save space by automatically erasing items more than 30 days. I tend to empty the trash almost daily. So that's more of a taking out the trash habit for me. And actually I have some trash in there right now. So it'll just say empty the trash.
Command Shift Delete.
Are you sure you want to? Yes. Boom. Okay, reduce clutter. So this is where you're probably going to spend most of your time. They've given you a preview over here of where the majority of your data is. Most people can't remove applications. Maybe if you have old Creative Cloud from 2017 or CS5 or whatever example. The old ones, get rid of them. Like just run the latest version of Adobe Creative Cloud, one version that really should be all you need, as long as it's the same version that everyone on your team is running. Don't install, I don't even know off the top of my head what they call it today, if it's 2021 or 2020, but if you're running the latest version, but it's a version ahead of your entire team, that's a bad idea. You all want to be on the same version, at least your immediate team. The good news is Adobe's made it easier to install older versions if you need it. So that's great. Used to be a real pain, but it's a lot easier now. But if we go to this review files, it's going to kind of help walk me through, where I need to focus some things. And here are some large files. There's a keynote presentation. I got a few of them, a PowerPoint presentation. And actually this one right here. So this is an application I'm using that's giving me this background and this video of myself through Zoom. And I've talked about it before. It does that neat stuff where you can put your head in a box and things like that. So I just had to reinstall this because I upgraded and now I don't need it. In fact, I'm surprised it's still here because a lot of installers today will ask you if you want to delete the package after the installation. Apparently this one did not. So I'm going to delete it. It's in my downloads folder. I can look at it in the Finder, or I can just hit delete, and I'm going to delete it and it goes into the trash. Oh, actually in this case, it goes straight to delete. So it bypassed it. At least I don't see it in the trash. So I think it just bypassed and went straight in. Yeah, straight gone. And then I've got downloads. This is a huge problem for me. I tend to download things and with all intentions of going back to clean them up and never do. Here's my attempt at trying to get my printer to work, after the upgrade. And so I can sort by size, or I can sort by, access date or kind, and go through here and clean some stuff up.
Are these downloads didn't you say you just wiped your machine and upgraded? So your downloads folder is a high traffic area.
Yes, but I did cheat a little bit because I almost immediately needed something from my downloads folder. And so I went to my Time Machine backup and just copied everything over. I'll clean it up later. I don't have time right now. I'll just, so
for sure. That explains it.
Yep. But good catch, Chad. You almost busted me there. You're right. That thing should be clean, right? Like, did I really download 2.5 gigs?
That's a lot.
1 week? Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
No, not quite. I got stuff from 2015 isn't fair because I just downloaded this thing. It's interesting that it says last accessed in 15. Interesting. But yeah, I have some old
that may
stuff
have come over with the file. That may be meta with that file.
Maybe. I don't remember.
It's an older driver. It must be an older driver.
Yeah. So let's see. I've got no unsupported apps, but that's because I did a clean install. You may find some old 32-bit apps. Definitely delete them. They're absolutely worthless. If they're unsupported, they're not going to run on your computer. At least that's what I think the intention is here. I don't think it's like, oh, that still works, but we're not going to help you if it breaks. No, I believe these will not run on your computer. Does anyone have these right now?
No.
Anything in this column?
I would love to see, though, an unused apps column in here. I remember last time I looked at this, it would be nice. There's enough data, that the operating system could tell us, hey, you haven't used these in a long time, maybe 6 months or something. It'd be nice to delete apps we don't use. That's great for a lot of reasons.
Well, Apple does that on iOS. So you would assume that eventually we would see that on the Mac. And if it's there, I haven't seen it yet, but let's see, containers. I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about here. Does anyone know?
No, I don't. I'm sure they're not talking about Kubernetes or Docker.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Application data containers, erase data you no longer need. So maybe that's application support type stuff, right? Plugins and,
maybe. I mean, I know support. If at least on iOS, you could install like a business management app, and there would be a business container and a personal container. Maybe that's what they're hinting at here.
That could be. Yeah,
I'd have to look at that. I have not seen that before. Yeah,
me neither.
I'll look into containers, and then file browser. This is just basically another view of the file browser, but showing it with some sizes. So Chad already noticed my downloads folder is rather large. Is that right? Down, I thought I had 2.5 gigs, so that's documents. Oh, I have documents highlighted over here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see. So this changes a bit. So application view, document view. So yeah, there must be containers and documents. I'm just not using any. iCloud view, which is not really showing me anything, is it? Open Apple ID preferences. It's going to take me to another screen where I have a few more options. I've optimized the Mac storage, which I think is similar to this. But to be honest with you, I don't know for sure. It says the full contents of iCloud Drive will be stored on this Mac. You have enough space. Older documents will be stored only in iCloud when space is needed. So that's the
that's cool.
That's the store in iCloud feature that, to your point, Chad, if you're not touching something, it's going to move it to the cloud, and you're going to get a little icon next to it, a cloud icon. And I don't know if I can show this or not. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So
that's cool.
I've got some documents that only live in the cloud. And if I want to view those, I would first have to download them, or I just need to click on them and it's going to download them. But this is where you can see there's some activity going on just because I'm browsing. But it could take could take a while. If it's a small file, it's not going to be long at all. If it's a large file like a video, it could take a while. And so if you're expecting it to just double click and open, it may not, because it has to download. It will show you an activity monitor there. Let's see, let me go back to where we were here. So documents, iCloud, mail. So this is my Apple Mail. This is not my Outlook. So be aware of that. This is, I believe, only going to show you Apple Mail. And if you use Microsoft Outlook, that's going to be completely separate. Messages, I've seen, me, my friends, my entire family, this is often a big culprit on the iPhone and on the Mac, where you just send GIFs and movies and photos and you share things, and it just accumulates over time.
Yeah.
So the biggest one is this movie, 87 megabytes. So I could highlight that and delete it. I could show it in the Finder. I could view it. I could see what it is before I delete it. Or I could say last accessed, and let's go. Yeah, so the reverse order. No, here's the reverse order. Yeah, these are all fairly recent. Wow. 2020, they all appear to be 2021. You know what? I think that's because I upgraded my operating system. I don't think that's true. I think that was the day I started this process, because I am not convinced that I really last accessed all of these January 31st.
No, that would make sense. That would change their inception date for all of them. That makes sense.
So that's a misnomer, and beware of that. What I would typically
do a clean install.
If I didn't do a clean install and I just did an upgrade in place, I would most likely see that, these are maybe a year old, and I would just pick a date. I did this with my son. I said, let's just pick a date a year older and grab everything we can and just hit delete. And he agreed to that, but I made him hit the delete button. So that's important. Don't make your family member hit the delete button so they can't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're losing something, like, well, you deleted it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then we got photos. So yeah, I could open photos and start going through that process, but we're not going to go there. And then system is grayed out. So apparently Apple knows enough to protect even me, an administrator on my own machine, from going into the system folder and deleting stuff. And trust me, if you're not sure what is safe to delete, just don't delete it. I've seen too many people destroy digital things because they thought, oh yeah, that's safe to delete. I never use that. And then suddenly their email doesn't work because it was some critical file. And I think that's less and less. I think Apple's protecting us more and more from that. But I remember I was at a client once. I made the mistake of deleting something that I was doing a demo, and I'm like, yeah, Apple does this new thing where they protect you. Well, apparently I misunderstood it. Apple did not protect me from deleting this file. That basically
need you on the QA
down,
team, Ben.
Yeah, brought down the entire computer. Like, oh, well, okay.
Ben deleted prod.
Yeah, I was able to recover, but it was
Nice.
It was a very surprising turn of events for the demo. So let's see there. I'm going to stop sharing, but I'm going to go at the risk of not knowing what this is, at the risk of giving a live demo, which is what I've been doing this whole time. If I'm going to say share screen and choose my iPad for sharing. Do you guys see my iPad?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
Negative.
It says iPhone, iPad via cable, which I have, but I wonder if it's not a compatible cable. Let's try via AirPlay. Oh, a plugin is required. Okay, I don't have the plugin, but I just installed it. Okay. So on your iPhone or iPad, let's try this. Tap screen mirroring and choose Zoom. Unable to connect. Probably says if you don't see it, probably because I just installed the plugin and it wants me to restart, which is not going to work. I was going to share my iPad or iPhone. If anyone wants to follow along, just open up your settings for your device. Go to General. Go to, I want to say, is it iPad storage. So within General, iPad, or you might see iPhone storage. And you're going to see something very similar to what I just showed you on the Mac. The first recommendation I see is review large attachments. And I actually have even more attachments on my iPad than I have on my computer. In fact, it says I could save up to 5.84 gigabytes, almost 6 gigabytes of data if I reviewed large attachments in Messages. And then from there, it goes, I'm looking at podcasts, photos, books, Messages, Outlook. So it actually shows me how much space each app is using. And I can decide whether I want to delete those apps or not. So that's another area I would focus on your iOS devices, your iPhones and iPads. And sorry, I couldn't share my screen. We'll get that working for next time, because I think that's a great feature to be able to share, the actual visual. So we went over the half hour. My apologies. Are there any questions or comments? Or Michelle, have you ever run into this and with you or your family cleaning up full iPhones?
We will be.
You will be, yeah.
Yes, before she can upgrade.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else. I do think the iOS is much smarter with storage, but there's a lot less we can do there. So we also,
right. That's right.
We don't really have the same file structure that we have on the Mac, and I actually find that a little confusing when I think too hard about it. If I just use it, it works great. But if I'm like, how do I get to that file, or where did I put it? And I come at it from the frame of reference of the Mac, it can be confusing, I think, on the iPhone and iPad. I think those people that excel at the iPhone and iPad don't even think about it. It's like, well, this just works. I'll just use it, you know. So
that's probably true.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. And if there are no questions, we'll end this. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. And I think we're going to talk about, Wyatt mentioned talking about docks and
dongles.
well, I call it docks and dongles. I don't know if we use that term anymore, but adapters and how to make things connect, especially as we all now have more modern devices with USB-C, which is pretty much the only connection a lot of these devices have. So we'll be talking about that, pros and cons of all that in 2 weeks. If you have any other suggestions you want to hear us talk about, please contact us.
Yeah, let us know. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Ciao.